Hey, Tigers. Sorry I'm not there today. I hope you're having a great day. Last time we started our poetry unit, and I talked to you about how we're leading up to a poetry explication where you're going to pick a poem and you're going to really break it apart. So we need to build some skills, and so we want to, review some terms, and we want to make sure that we understand everything. So Mr. Ramsey should have given you this little half sheet, and on one side, it has general poetry terms. On the other side, it has sounds and poetry terms. Let's do the general poetry terms first. And if I'm going too fast, feel free to pause the video so that you can look at the term and write it down. But it should be pretty easy, pretty quick. So first poetry term is the line. That is the unit of writing that the poem is divided up into. So every poem has lines, and we can number the lines, right? We talked about that with sonnet number 5, talking about how many lines it had. And often when we refer to something within a poem, we say, hey, everybody look at line number 4, and then we talk about what we're seeing in line number 4. And so that's how we refer to poems. So like it says up there, it's a unit of writing that it's divided into. So I'll give you like another 10 seconds to write the definition down. Okay. Next one is stanza. So stanzas are where we group lines together, and you can have every conceivable combination of lines within a stanza. You can have 2-line stanzas, you can have 3-line stanzas, but stanzas are the equivalent in fiction of paragraphs. And so, like, instead of calling it a paragraph, we call it a stanza because that's what it is. You can have 4-line stanzas, 5-line stanzas, but that's how we refer. So we talk about stanzas and we talk about lines when we're referring to things in poetry. And so I just want us to be accurate when we're talking about poems. Probably need less time for this one, huh? Because it's such a short definition. Here we go. Next one. So the poetic turn, that's the big term for this first set of poems. So the poetic turn, sometimes people call it the volta. That's an Italian word. Or just the turn, is usually the shift in the poem. It says a rhetorical shift or a dramatic change in thought or emotion. Oftentimes, poems are going to have more than one, but in a good poem, you should start at a different place than you end. Emotionally or, cognitively, intellectually, you should start different from where you started. And so often it's a good practice to identify where we believe the turn in a poem is. I think that that's always a good practice. And it can be up for interpretation. What I think is the turn might be different based off of my interpretation of the poem. And so there's a multitude often of right answers, but usually people will generally agree, like, yeah, I think this is the turn or turns in this poem. But you can discuss it, right? You can say, I think it's this one because of this. And as long as you have, information back it up, as long as you have evidence, I think that it's legitimate. So I'll give you another 10 seconds to write down this one. Okay. So then if Mr. Ramsey can pause the video real quick and pass out the poem Quail Egg. Well, that's our first mini lesson. We did 3 terms. I want us to look at this poem and I want us to talk about poetic turns. So go ahead and pause the video right now and pass out Quail Egg, and then I'll see you when you come back. Hey, you're back. So you should have the poem Quail Egg, and I'll read it. It's a fantastic poem. I love this poem. And so this is Lance Larson, and it's Quail Egg. While watering, I found it under the ponderosa pine, a stray egg already cold, dropped by a stray hen on her way to somewhere else. A thing like that you have to save, but my PJs had no pockets, so I polished it on my sleeve and popped it into the wet pouch of my mouth for safekeeping. Its shell tasted like calcium, like sun, which is to say, like nothing at all. I moved that oval prayer cheek to cheek, and even the names of my hostas, stained glass, blue angel, ice and fire, seemed to bear witness to a new magnetic north. Was the egg fertilized? Should I call it a compass? Cook it in bacon fat? I felt old as an alderman, young as rain. And for a moment, oppositions held. Tame, feral, inside, outside, me, not me, slug, sky. Then my beloved called from the kitchen for me to grab a ripe peach or two, and the world wrinkled. I answered in a nothing voice, like the groggy man she kissed awake at dawn, but already I could taste funerals on my tongue, wings budding at my back. Oh, I love that poem. It's so good. So what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to lean over to your row partner and talk to them about where you think the poetic turn in this poem is. It's okay if you have different answers. Also, it's okay if you see more than one. So take like 2 minutes. Mr. Ramsey, you can pause the video, talk to your row partner, and discuss where you think the poetic turn is. And then Mr. Ramsey, ask a couple, like 3 students to share after they've had their 2 minutes. Ask them to share what they think the poetic turn is and why they think it's that poetic turn. Okay, I'm back now, and you should have talked about it. I think that there's a lot of really good lines for the poetic turn in this. I actually really like on line, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Between lines 11 and 12, I really like to put my poetic turn there because he says he bears witness to a new magnetic north. So the whole direction of his life out of this instance has changed, and he's now going in a new and totally utterly different direction. And then he starts asking rhetorical questions, right? We're not supposed to answer these, but he says after that, I feel old, but I also feel young, and he has all of these dichotomies going on. So I love to put the poetic turn there. I also could absolutely see it when his beloved calls him from the kitchen. There's maybe another poetic turn because now we're going back inside, and we're not in this like almost fantasy realm that's happening at the beginning of the poem as he finds the quail egg. Anyway, as long as you can explain it, you're all good. Okay, so can you now grab your little half sheet again? Let's do our other mini lesson. So you're going to flip it over to Sounds and Poetry. This one will go fast as well. And then let's talk about the first one. So this should be review, right? You know alliteration. This is the repetition of consonant sounds in adjacent or closely connected words. Usually we are looking, when we're looking at alliteration, we are looking at the beginnings of words, because in English, the majority of our words start with a consonant. Most of our words start with a consonant, but we could also be looking at consonant sounds in the middle or the ends of words. We just don't tend to do that, right? That's more difficult to do. So alliteration usually happens at the beginnings of words. And, like even in the quail egg, there's a little bit of alliteration towards the beginning. There's ponderosa pine, PJs and pockets, polished, popped, pouch. We're repeating even prayer, right? A couple lines later. We're repeating that P sound through the beginning of that poem. All right, so that's alliteration. Assonance is the repetition of vowel sounds in adjacent or closely connected words. This is usually happening in the middle of words because most of our words have vowel sounds in the middle. It's more rare to have vowel sounds at the beginning of words. It does happen, but usually assonance is happening in the middle of the words. And so like maybe in the quail egg, we're repeating the O sound because there is like cold and dropped and on, and there's no, polished, popped, pouch, mouth. Pouch and mouth is a really good assonance going on there in line 4, because it has the OU sound repeated. So assonance happens all the time. And anytime you guys need to pause and come back to something, that's perfectly fine. If you don't have enough time to write things down, I'm going pretty fast. Onomatopoeia should also be a review word for you. So these are those words that they make the sound that they represent. So like the examples that I put there are sizzle and pop, crackle, things like that. I would say the one assonance that we have, or one onomatopoeia in quail egg, is popped. We'll see some more examples in just a minute, but yeah. Then we have euphony. I'm assuming that this one will be a new term for you. So euphony just means that the poetic line is pleasing to the ear and it's musical. When we read it, we go, oh, that's beautiful. It's easy to read as we go through. The words are in a pleasing manner. So I gave Emily Dickinson line as my example. A bird came down the walk. Perfectly serviceable line. Sounds great. A bird came down the walk. Easy to read. So I'll give you an extra little couple seconds to write down euphony. So then the opposite of euphony is cacophony. Cacophony are lines that are discordant. They're difficult to read or pronounce. You fumble over them. I mean, like the example line from John Updike has the word fumble in it. They're meant to slow you down and trip you up. They sound, I would say they sound yucky to the ear. They're not pleasing when you read them. And you go, oh, I don't love that line. But sometimes poets do that on purpose to make you slow down and make you read more carefully. So John Updike's line is "Never my numb plunker fumbles," which is hard to read, and like I don't like the feel of it in my mouth. Never my numb plunker fumbles. It doesn't feel right. Okay, so those are our sounds in poetry terms. And Mr. Ramsey can pass out the other set of poems. So it has the bee network on it, then it has blackberry eating and the word plum. And I want you to look at the bee network first. The bee network, I do not think is a good poem. I chose it because you can really see a lot of these sounds in poetry terms, which what we want to do now is we want to spend some time identifying things. And so I would like circle or underline or something like that. I'm just going to read a little bit. I think that you can absolutely overdo things in a poem. But I want to start with the bee network because it's so good at identifying things. But I think that this poem really overdoes it. So here's the beginning of it. Brothers bop and pop and bebop and cities locked up and chained, insane by crack and other acts. Desperation, computerized in Pentagon cellars, producing bopping brothers, boasting of being better, best, and beautiful. If the bopping brothers are beautiful, where are the sisters who seek brother men with a drugless head, unbossed or beaten by the bodacious West? Ugh. I don't love this poem. It's too much, right? But it's really good for identifying. So can you and your row partner take like 2 minutes and just identify at least one example of every single sound and poetry term in this poem? So I want to see an example of alliteration. I want to see an example of assonance. I want to see an example of onomatopoeia, euphony, and cacophony. So Mr. Ramsey, if you can pause the video, give them 2 minutes, and then they can identify some stuff. Okay. Did you find them all? Maybe the one that you might have struggled with is onomatopoeia, but we do have like pop and bebop in the beginning. Maybe even, I know that crack is assuming is the drug they're talking about. Never mind. So like bop and pop and bebop in this poem. Cool. So now flip it over. And we have Blackberry Eating by Galloway Kinnell and The Word Plum by Helen Chasen. And I don't know why so many of these sounds in poetry poems that we use for examples are about fruit, but it just seems to be that's the way it is. So once again, with your row partner, can you talk to them, read both poems first, and then identify what you're seeing? Mr. Ramsey, if you could set the timer probably for 5 minutes this time, maybe 5 or 6 minutes, and give them some time to look at these poems. And then after that, we're done with the mini lesson. So you can turn me off and go ahead and start moving out of the poetry and into something else. So this is the mini lesson. So have a great rest of your day. See you next time. Bye.